I'm going to insulate that wall. And you're not going to believe what I found inside. More on that shortly. First I got in touch with the demolitions expert. She's the most expensive tradie I've ever had. And she kept demanding smoko breaks. Turns out the fireplace is only held in by 2 screws. So I dragged the thing out and continued the game of what gross shit's behind my wall. The whole tribe turned up and suddenly I had a great big fucking mess to clean. $5 says they're going to turn out to be Sparkies. Matt at Marlborough Appliance Repairs turned up to disconnect the heat pump and marked his territory the human way. Little does he know I know how to use Photoshop. And that is a golden opportunity. The demolitions expert informed me that working at heights wasn't in a job contract, so I had to remove all the high stuff myself. Now if you're wondering why there's black paper in some spots and none in others, join the bloody club. There's an old lintel and some bricks of a different colour in behind it, so I'm guessing it used to be a fireplace or something like that, but they've done a shit job of repairing it. Because I'm insulating all of the exterior walls, and because they're fucking ugly, the pelmets came down too. I checked to see how level the wall was. Turns out it was more wobbly than my ex-wife, so I quickly dispensed with the level and got out the big guns. And because I apparently learned from my fuck-up fairy visit, I punched in all of the nails before dealing with the wobbly bastard. And it turns out it's bloody cold. Now I'm trying to move the structure without the fuck-up fairy getting involved. Spoilers, I'm not very successful. I've got to mount some new timber in the right spot. So my new plasterboard's got something to screw into. Much like a prepubescent teenager, my walls are at an awkward height. So I've got to get extra wide sheets to make it all fit. As I was cutting up the new nogs, I had an unexpected visit from the fuck-up fairy. Always a bit exciting, especially when there's power tools involved. So with those cut to length, I went back to the living room, and got them installed. And if you have no idea what the hell's going on here, well, that makes 2 of us. Although I'm still pretty confident I can do better than the last guy. As you can see behind me, someone's already tried to do this once, and they took about as much care as a 4-year-old throwing a tantrum. In an ideal world, this black paper would be all the way around the outside. But since that's not really an option for me, I'm playing arts and crafts between each piece of wood. It's going to stop any moisture coming through the bricks and getting my insulation wet. And once I got the foreman off my back, I got the last of the paper in, while the Minister of Interior ate chips and watched. Did I mention it's bloody cold without walls? As you can see, I've got raw brick showing, so there's 0 insulation currently. I plan to change that. But before I can show you the coolest time lapse ever, I've got to straighten up this wobbly bastard of a wall and add some back blocking for my plasterboard. That way I'll actually have something to screw to. Then I got to put my origami skills to use and began filling every gap I could find. I was all sticky by the end of it though, and it left white foam all over the place. I'm starting to think this content should come with an R18 warning. At the absolute last minute, I remembered, I should put power on this wall. And before every Sparky on here starts yelling at me, yes, I have my Sparky ticker, and of course I don't clean up when I'm done. Now it's time to start playing with forbidden cotton candy. I'm installing a glass wool insulation, specifically a 0-inch one. The black paper in behind is the moisture barrier. It'll stop any moisture travelling through the bricks and into the insulation. It can sometimes feel like hours of work, and it seems like nothing's changed. But then you get times like this that make it all worthwhile.
Now I've got to get this in there without breaking it.
Good luck. Here's a lesson on how not to move plasterboard.
Oh, shit.
And as you already know, it's a bit of an ordeal. But then I'm pretty used to the fuck-up fairy visiting.
I'm supposed to be doing the bottom.
Turns out the fairy's here early, so I moved the glue to the correct location, and then definitely paid more care moving the next sheet, because that would just be stupid to let the same thing happen twice.
Fuck. I would not recommend manoeuvring 4.8 metre sheets by yourself.
So with those words of wisdom, fixed the bottom sheet in place, and then got to work manoeuvring the other sheet, by myself. Do as I say, not as I do, I guess. And it was about this point that I started to question my life decisions, and all of that was just for a test fit. I had to lift the heavy bastard again after gluing it. You see, when I'm left with the option of doing it myself, or asking for help, I'm gonna do it the hard way. Now to fit off the last section of wall, I first had to deal with a dirty steel beam poking out, apparently one that had developed a peephole fetish. So I plugged the offending hole with some PFE rod, and opted for the destructive solution. It seems I've gone over quota for my fuck-up fairy visits this week. With the wall finally level, I was able to put on the final sheet of gym, which of course meant that my terrible plastering skills got put to use. I wasn't kidding, I suck at plastering. There was more plaster on the floor and my hands than anywhere else. But perseverance sometimes pays off. See, even a broken clock is right 2 times a day, so with enough attempts I'm bound to get it right once. This too was pretty satisfying, but then the fairy decided I wasn't allowed to use it anymore, because I stood on the bloody thing while I was sanding. The next job was to get paint on the wall, and of course that's the domain of the Minister of Interior.
So we can't just paint directly onto the plasterboard. What we've got to do instead is prime it first. That's already gone on, and now I'm able to put the actual colour on the wall. Let's get it done.
Thank you, past me. Now my sense of decor is about as adventurous as mashed spuds, so you can imagine that forest green had me a bit nervous. Oh, and a quick tip, don't re-roll over half-dry paint. Turns out it ruins the texture, but that's a problem for future Cranky Pants, because for now the Minister of Interior would rather like a warm room. We've got 2 different greens, with very different bases in our lounge, and we're trying to bring them together.
Every bloody time.
Trouble is, I keep painting where I shouldn't. Even painting where I should seems to end poorly.
It's not ideal.
But then that's to be expected when the fuck-up fairy's an uninvited house guest. The Minister of Interior has the con today, because colour and I tend not to mix. And the foreman wasn't happy about it either. He made sure we knew it.
How'd the cat get in this? I've just started.
You see, I had the all-important job of roller controller, although I suspect it was more just to keep me out the way, because I spent more time cleaning than doing actual work. And as it turns out, I'm not even qualified for that. That's not coming right. It seems that adding too much water washes paint away. No one could have guessed that. So with the second coat turning out to be a complete bust, I promised not to wash away all her hard work this time, and let her finish it in peace.
Don't call me good idea Nick for nothing.
And as it turns out, she was right. Shut up, good idea, Nick. Whoop, careful. Nice save, fella. I'm supposed to be installing door trim, but apparently a couch isn't very stable. Somewhere out there, the fuck-up fairy's having a good old chuckle at my expense. It's not very often the Minister of Interior gets on my case, but I'm on a time crunch today, as we've arranged to get curtains fitted, but I haven't finished my door yet. So if it wasn't immediately obvious, this week's about remedying that sad state of affairs, one trim piece at a time. So with a couple of 45-degree cuts and several bursts of expletives later, I got the trim pieces nice and tight and then nailed them off. And you'll understand why I stressed nice and tight in just a little bit. In the meantime, we're sticking with the old Scotia for the rest of this room, and because of my trusty shame pile that grows by the day, it just so happens I've got some that I can reuse once I get through the 12 layers of paint they're covered in. And as an added bonus, I get more practice at filling holes. Speaking of things to fill, my roof is a bit of a wobbly bugger, so there's plenty of no more gaps required as well. Now remember how I said nice and tight earlier? Well, it turns out wood shrinks when it dries out. Next time remind me to acclimatise my wood before just shoving it in. Next I'm moving back to the other side of the room, and almost fallen off a ladder. There's old painted wood panelling on there at the moment, and I plan to change that, because in its place I want to build some cabinetry. Apparently I didn't have enough fun screwing it up last time, but then that's probably to be expected when an IT teacher tries to DIY. Maybe some working at heights training's in order as well. As I discovered in a previous episode, they aren't native timber, they're just shitty old bits of pine. So my desire to keep them has waned significantly. Now it's not often that I get told off by the Minister of Interior. All she asks is that when I'm ripping down stupid shit, i.e. a random wall in the lounge, that I put a drop cloth down. And you may notice a certain absence of a drop cloth in this video. And coincidentally, you wouldn't be the only person that noticed an absence. But we'll get to that in a second, because I'm hoping to reuse this piece of trim. Apparently the fuck-up fairy had other ideas, so now I'll have to steal some from another part of the house. I'm sure no one will mind. Well, maybe hope is a better way to put it. Anyway, with all the wood off the wall, it was time to start ripping into that plasterboard. A job which I can assure you is rather messy. And the reason I can be so sure? Well, I was told at great length. Kinda circling back to that whole drop cloth thing now.
You record that, but you don't record me scolding you about putting a drop sheet down. Well, I did say, which X should I drop you off to?
I can confirm that old New Zealand houses are mostly insulated with hopes and prayers, and I'm doing my best to change that one room at a time, which is harder than you might expect when the fuck-up fairy visits you more than your mother-in-law. Now there's just one rule in the cranky pad, and that's use a drop cloth, and I'm relying on you all to keep this little indiscretion to yourself. You see, it wouldn't be the first time I've left a fine film of dust throughout the house, probably won't be the last time either, but I did say that I would at least try to put a drop cloth down. I'm also trying out a wee drywall hack, and in the process realising how uneven my roof is. Back to the drywall, if you mark your door frame with plaster dust and then give it a good belt, rumour has it you get a perfect outline. Results may vary.
Or do you want to put it up against the couch again so you get chip dust all over there?
Which one of you buggers dobbed me in?
Oh, that old thing?
That old thing. That we never notice until we go and sit down on the couch and this puff of chip dust smoke at
This
us.
is the way.
So having thoroughly learned my lesson, I then put a drop cloth down to cut out my drywall. Yeah, just kidding. But if this is my last video, well, you probably know what happened. And to be fair, I probably deserved it. Hopefully I can ease tensions by providing a wall. Well, not my finest work.
I've got a problem. Many problems. This piece here is supposed to be flush. I'm 10 mil out. And that's because the wood that was on there was textured. I'm probably going to have to shim in behind this wood. I'm going to have some lunch and think about that.
And maybe find a vacuum. I don't have a problem, I can stop whenever I want. I just don't want to. And if ever you need a proof that I'm not a tradesman, well then get a load of this cursed jigsaw puzzle. Because I decided instead of cutting my door frame, I'd instead pack out the plasterboard. Fortunately, it'll all be hidden away.
That'll work.
My thoughts exactly. And for those of you that were wondering about why I didn't insulate it, well, because I forgot, obviously. But then it's not an external wall, so it's probably not that big of a deal. I'm pretty used to listening to Bluey at this point. I managed to catch the Minister of Interior on film, fixing up my last fuck-up.
Nice and wet.
And for clarification, the paper tape's wet, not the Minister. And why is it wet? Well, to keep the bubbles away, apparently. There's also this fiberglass tape that apparently gets rid of the bubbles intrinsically.
Are we supposed to wear gloves?
As if I've read the
Surely
instructions.
Cover exposed skin.
Ah.
Loose fibre. Was it like I felt it on my hands and I was like, it felt almost like pins and needles?
Is it worth having to wear gloves for the convenience of not getting air bubbles.
I might just stick with getting it wet. I meant the paper tape, obviously. So with 3 coats of plaster on, I then used the world's cheapest primer, and boy did that bite me in the arse.
Stop doing that!
I'd like to put my TV on this wall. Unfortunately, it was a wee bit too short. So I'm going to make it a bit longer, and maybe add in one of those neat recess things while I'm at it. Do I know how to build one of those? Well, no. I teach IT for a living, but then that's never stopped me trying stupid shit in the past. I started out by trying to extend the framing, and the Minister of Interior made a rare appearance. I swear she's got a radar for when I'm making a mess. So after some thorough research on the University of YouTube, I realised the top and bottom plate would need to be thoroughly secured, which is where these Dynabolts come in. I asked for an inspection, but the foreman just gave me a stiff ignoring. So I went for a run and got recognised by my adoring fans. After providing them all with signatures, I got back to the task at hand and started working on the top plate. I even used a laser like a real boy. Now if you ever have the pleasure of working on a 1970s home, you'll quickly come to the realisation that nothing is square. Fortunately, the Minister of Interior was there with a beer, although I think I was the show.
Are you putting me on blast?
No dear, I wouldn't dream of it. Eventually the foreman did get round to inspecting, and it turns out my wood's all on the piss. Or at least that's what I'll tell myself to maintain that overinflated ego. I built this wall using wood that's more wobbly than my past relationships, and much like them, it's often better just to swap out the wobbly bit. So with a straight piece of lumber, the results speak for themselves. So after spending far too long making sure everything was square, the fairy turned up again.
Turns out I need 2 sets of these nogs, so I'm going to move those ones down and then put in another set here. I'm also going to put in a second stud alongside this one. I learned stuff. Slowly.
This TV wall in the making has been exposed timber for over a year, and I'd really like to finish a room at some point. The trouble is ADHD and renovating tend to make for a chaotic coupling.
Ow! Pinchy.
Especially when you get emergency phone calls from the Minister of Interior's parents. It seems the day for wobbly things because their tap was doing it too. So I put my mediocre handyman skills to use and got a far more cordial inspection from their foreman. With that resolved, I got back to building the wing wall, and I'm putting 2 studs here to hopefully stop the 6-year-old resident wrecking ball from destroying this Frankenstein wall. Although if I'm honest, my money's on the 6-year-old.
Now I'm going to put in some support for this thing. Ow!
Ordinarily, I turned down an offer of help when it came to renovating things, and today was no exception, because why make things easy on yourself when you can take the hard road all the time? I'm trying to build a TV wall, and it's going about as well as you can expect when you live with a fuck-up fairy. By some miracle, we woke up to no children in the house, so seeing as they weren't around to destroy the nice clean household, I figured I'd better do it myself. The morning started out great with no sign of the fuck-up fairy on site. Problem is, I said that aloud, which as anyone who's familiar with the fairy knows, is kind of like summoning Beetlejuice. So as I plodded along installing the TV recess, the Minister of Interior had her best idea yet. So off we went to the pub, because it was time for a grown-up juice. With a fairy-free Saturday, I was really hoping I might get something similar for the Sunday. But well, we both know how that turns out. So with the position of the sockets all sorted, it was time to get the drywall on. Something that should be a relatively straightforward job, until you get to the point of needing to carry things over your head. And you might be asking, well, why didn't you just get help? And to be fair, that's a bloody good question, because the Minister of Interior literally offered. To which I replied, no, I'll be fine.
Fuck!
Welcome back, fairy.
Well, that might be a problem.
Now I have the joy of playing with forbidden cotton candy. The sort that if you try and eat, then the emergency doctor's going to be hearing about it. Then I don't particularly want to be hearing Bluey all through the house, so I think it's probably worth the effort. There's going to be a TV wall on the other side of this, and hopefully this insulation should stop any noise from moving. Now I just need the same reminder when it comes to doing the master bedroom. Come to think of it, maybe a double layer's in order. So with the acoustic insulation installed, it was time to actually build the wall. And according to the Jib site guide, we glue in the middle and screw around the outside. Quite the opposite to the master bedroom, really. I pulled in the Minister of Interior to give me a hand. Not that kind, you dirty bugger.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
And so naturally, the fairy turned up.
Must have a joiner in the back of that. Whoops.
Because I forgot about gluing the seam together. So having not only dropped the plasterboard last week, and then having a test fit that included glue, the poor board's been thoroughly thrashed. But hopefully, 3rd time's a charm. And if you're wondering why we have to glue the back, it's to stop any cracks from forming. Once again, the Minister helped me get it all the way up, while I made sure it stayed there this time. But if you've seen my videos before, then you'll know that the next stage is plastering, and well, let's just say that the fairy visits often.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
It was in fact not fine, but more on that later. But now I've realised the only entertaining way to show plastering is not to.
Sucks.
Which coincidentally is also the only entertaining way to do plastering, because no matter how many times I try it,
Look like I did in the video.
and so I think a 5-second montage is in order. Just know that behind those 5 seconds of footage was about 2 days work. And for those of you wondering, I fixed the broken up corner from last week with excessive amounts of plaster. The Minister of Interior came to my rescue, as usual.
Thank you kindly.
I saw that.
And yes, I was thinking it too, you dirty bugger. So with a quick coat of primer, we were all set to show which generation we're a part of by putting green on the wall. At which point the fairy showed up.
Absolute dog's bollocks.
Oh, ballsack. Okay.
Yeah. And this is better.
And that night, after a couple of drinks, someone implied I couldn't do a handstand. And it turns out they were right.
I think you might have injured yourself.
On the last episode of Why the Fuck Do I Keep Doing This to Myself, I managed to get myself carpet burn while playing silly buggers. So now I'm on my best behaviour, pretending as though I know how to put a TV wall together.
That'll work.
I couldn't move this wall on account of it holding up my roof, so the next best thing was to make it into a feature, which doesn't come naturally on account of my uninvited house guest, also known as the fuck-up fairy. A guest which I'm really hoping won't follow me into renovation talk next week. And if you're wondering what that is, well, join the club, because I really don't know what I'm doing either. But past me decided it would be a great idea, so now I'm going to be competing in a renovation show on TikTok.
Forgot to put any timber behind the joins.
Okay, I see the fairy hasn't gotten the memo yet. Either that or there's some early sabotage coming on from the other teams. My money's on Brad, he seems like he's got connections. But all jokes aside, there seems to be this real sense of imposter syndrome. It gets stronger and stronger the further down the rabbit hole I go. So as the fuck-up fairy says, if you're going to do something, do it well. Failing that, make a big mess. Either way, it should be pretty entertaining. And if the end result is a half-finished house, well, I think the Minister of Interior might count that as a win.
The coat, I think. We've got no in my luck. Maybe like 6 more coats.
Must be getting better at this whole plastering thing, because it was legitimately only one more coat. The next stage, however, required a bit more preparation, especially when there's a high likelihood of fuck-up fairy visits. You see, these old carcasses are going to become built-in cabinetry to hide away all of the children's board games and Lego. So while I tutored out in the workshop, Nick seemed to have a fire in her belly and had the space cleared before I could blink. Something tells me she might be excited for this one, possibly a little too excited.
Missed one.
Although I might have spoken too soon,
It's supposed to be the same height.
because I was in too much of a rush myself.
Damn it. I guess I'm recutting.
It turns out remaking cabinetry isn't as easy as I thought. But eventually I got the first 3 carcasses made out of offcuts,
Now just gotta do the bottoms.
which took far longer than I anticipated. But after 2.5 long days of building, I finally had a solution to my Lego problem.
Perfect.
Time to paint, we've gone for a resin colour called Field Day. It goes on the wall, mate, not the door. And it was at this point that Panasonic made an entrance with the biggest, most smarty pants telly of all time.
We got a TV!
Which, as any good IT tech knows, it needs to be installed and played with immediately. Peeling the plastic off almost feels illegal.
That might be the most satisfying thing in the world.
Now we've just got to hide all the stuff inside of the new cabinets. And that's where I put my extensive joinery experience to use. And by extensive, I mean that door I hung last week. But the foreman wasn't complaining, so I must have done okay. The local legend Wendy hooked me up with all the aesthetic pieces of the project, as well as a hot cross bun or two. And while I fannied about showing off my levelling skills, guess who showed up? I spent some time licking my wounds. Nick got to work making a bed for the shyest member of the family, a 16-year-old Scottish fold cat called Ninja, who seems completely uninterested in whatever I'm doing, although if there's a warm spot somewhere, you can pretty much guarantee you'll find her there. I continued playing Jenga and predictably the whole tower fell down. Apparently my protestations could be heard from outside, and suddenly I found myself with a supervisor.
What did I just do? You were so right to just say buy those hinges.
Say it louder because the neighbours don't get to hear. I was what?
You were
If you think you heard something, no you didn't.
stoked.
It was all going so very well until the minister looked at my work.
You installed it wrong, son of a. You can't have that.
So having remediated that blunder, I finally got to celebrate.
Yes!
Since it's been 3 years since I started this room and it's still not finished, Nick has provided me with the list. Better get on with it. Install electrical sockets with USBs. Check. Make sure they work. Damn it. Yes. Check. Perform actual magic. The internet said that this was possible, so we gave it a crack. Unfortunately, the fuck-up fairy distracted me.
Did we spray up the remote?
Yeah, the remote control window.
Install skirting. Check. Install scotia. Check. And as I stopped the saw, it bounced off, ruining my 4.7 metre length.
I hate this shit.
Build a cool wood storage box. It seems so straightforward and simple. Somehow the fuck-up fairy managed to find me despite all of the rain. Check. Speaking of rain,
This rain is causing quite the issue.
hopefully this will clear up soon. Carry on with the list, Christopher. Shelving. Cutting floating shelves down to the ideal size is easier said than done.
That's not supposed to look like that. I forgot that I'd watered down the paint to use it in the sprayer.
I didn't say anything.
It didn't say anything.
So I need an emergency 1 litre. Resin to the rescue. Again. Oh. Check. Install the shelves.
Check. Find a solution for where the green meets the green.
We went for the ombre effect to merge field day into forest green, which was much easier said than done.
Check. Unpack the freedom deliveries and style the room.
It's likely that Tasman's warning will be upgraded to the highest level, a red warning.
So, we've just been on the phone with the courier company.
3 days of cancelled ferries.
Weather gods can be fickle.
We can't get freight into Blenheim at the moment.
However, we have another plan. You're going to get arts and craftsy.
Arts and crafts!
Enjoy.
My name is Chris and I do lots of farts.
Oi.
My name is Nick and I'm really cool.
Hey, I'm not so comfortable with this.
Yeah, well, I'm directing this shot, so. Oh my god, Nick, this is such a cool lounge. I can't wait to sleep on the couch. You don't need to, because you finally finished a room. I love these Asteria chairs. They are so cool. I'll put the throw over the edge of the chair, just like Sonali showed me. Hey Chris, would you like to put the nice cushions on the Eaton couch? It is a really cool couch. Woo! Freedom. Making lounge dreams come true. High five.
If you'd like to see this build in more detail, you can find a link to the full build in the description, or you can find it on my YouTube page.